So I've just seen the social media post from the M.E Association. Um, Basically, they reposted about the article that has come out in the Telegraph, and I think it was yesterday, so I haven't been able to get hold of it. I don't have the Telegraph subscription, and I can't find it online at the moment for the full story. But the gist of it is that the Perrin Technique is not recommended, it's not being recommended by the M.E Association and on the NICE guidelines. So for those of you that don't know what the Perrin Technique is, it's basically a system which it's all about your lymphatic system. And this guy, Dr. Perrin, has come up with this technique about 30 years ago, I think it was. And he has claimed that he's helped many people with ME, with fibromyalgia, with post-viral fatigue, with lots of other different conditions which have fatigue and pain as their main symptoms, their main problem. And it's basically been marketed, I guess, as such as a cure for people with ME. So back in January last year, in 2023, I started taking LDN, and that's when I was doing a bit more research and I was finding out about things. And then in March, I decided to reach out about the Perrin Technique because I'd read some success stories. I thought, come but March time I was kind of feeling well enough to be able to leave the house, to be able to go and have this treatment, because obviously you need to go and you have to travel there, and that takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And obviously for people with severe ME, you probably wouldn't be able to do it. So at the time I was mild moderate ME, I'd say moderate ME, and so I would travel across for this Perrin Technique, and I started it, and I did see some improvements, but of course it was the same time, it was coinciding with when I was taking LDN, and of course I was titrating up with LDN, and I'll make another video about that and talk about that another time. But it was a very weird experience. I kind of read about what happened, but I didn't really know exactly what would happen. And obviously you get into the appointment, and I had a guy who was doing the treatment, and you have to undress the top half completely. So obviously top off, bra off, and you're covered with a towel. But then it's basically like massaging areas around the breast area, around the neck, and then obviously it moves to the back as well to do some kind of massaging and that sort of thing. And it's weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird. I found it really uncomfortable. I didn't feel great. I felt tense the whole time. When I get tense or I feel uncomfortable, I think I tend to talk a little bit and giggle a bit, because I tried to make up for the that feeling of awkwardness and everything. But it wasn't a very pleasant experience overall. And I just kept thinking to myself, lots of other people have done this with ME and they've recovered. Like, this is what the success stories, in the books, the Perrin Technique books, I bought those and I read those, and they're saying, these people that were taking all of these supplements and medication, everything, and they recovered, or they got back to a point where they could exercise again. And so when you don't have a lot of hope, because there's not a lot of help out there for you, like a lot of the doctors had abandoned me, they still don't want anything to do with me, because when you have a chronic illness, it's very difficult to treat, because what do you treat? You just treat the symptoms. And unfortunately with ME there are so many different symptoms, and then you end up being on 10 different painkillers. I mean, at one point I was on morphine, and that wasn't doing anything. They wanted to put me on something else, that was turning me into a zombie. And I just you don't want to be on those things. And so the Perrin Technique was kind of a way to get some life back, to get some normality back. So I stuck with it from March, I think it was, to August, September, and it was it was really difficult. Like, I would go across for the treatment and it would completely wipe me out for the rest of the week. So my life was basically this one appointment a week and then trying to recover so I'd be well enough to go for the following week. And I don't know if it was making a huge amount of difference. I don't know if it's that, or say, like I said earlier, if it was the LDN, which is low dose naltrexone, because I was taking that and titrating up. And of course, the longer you take that, you start to see the effects of that. So again, I'll talk about this in another video. But so the reason I stopped going was because the person who was treating me, I didn't feel was taking it seriously enough, and by that I mean there were certain things that I didn't agree with the practice, and I'm not going to go into too many details on here, but I decided to stop. I carried on with the treatment at home myself, so I was doing the treatment myself at home, as best as I could anyway, and I was doing that pretty much every day. At one point I was doing it 3 times a day, and that was completely knackering me. Like, it's a lot for your system, like an awful lot for your system, and especially when you don't have the energy. Like, you have to make energy to do that, and it's really, really hard. I'm not gonna lie, like it took a lot from me. So I don't know if the Perrin Technique helped, or if it was just the LDN, or if it was a combination of the two. Like, obviously with ME, it's a multi-system disease. Really, you have to treat different things at the same time to kind of see like those 1% improvements. So the fact that this has come to light and they're saying that it's not recommended, I mean, it's a massive blow, because I think you're holding on to hope and you want to try anything that will give you some sort of normality back and some sort of quality of life. And the Perrin Technique is not cheap. I think I was paying £45 for the hour. I think it was £40 or £45 out. Of course, it's not covered by the NHS. And like many people out there, if you can't work full time, where do you get this money from? So of course, I was relying heavily on my partner and my family to be able to pay for all this treatment for me, and still relying on them because I still can't work full time. And there just isn't the help out there. There isn't the help. You're left. You are just left to deal with it yourself. So the fact that this article's come out and it's saying, actually, we don't recommend this, I just feel like when there's a glimmer of hope for people, it's taken away. And I think, I would say to people, I do feel like doing something with your lymphatics is beneficial, because I do think there's something in that with blocked lymphatics and treating that system. I don't think it necessarily has to be the Perrin Technique, or if you do want to do the Perrin Technique, just do it yourself at home. Like, buy the book, or look on YouTube for videos. I mean, there's a couple of videos on there, but they're not great, but you can kind of get an idea of what's involved, and just start doing it yourself and just seeing if you notice an improvement. And if you do, and you can manage to get out to the appointments, go and try it. But I think everyone is different, everyone is unique. It might work for some people, it might not work for others. I think it helped me at a time that I needed hope. And I know ME is not a psychological illness, and I wish people would stop saying that it is. But I do think that having hope is important with this illness, because it's so hard on you on every area of your life, and you need those little glimmers to keep you going. You do. And if that's the Perrin Technique, if it's low dose naltrexone, if it's going for all these other random treatments or whatever, then I do think there is something in it. Just if you feel like it helps you, then do it. But what I will say is that I know people have said, like the NICE guidelines have said they don't recommend this. Obviously, they did have graded exercise therapy on their guidelines for a long time. I believe they're not on there anymore, but that obviously was very detrimental to a lot of people. I certainly can't do exercise, especially cardio exercise, anymore. I used to be a right fitness freak and exercise an awful lot, and you know, be able to do boxing and weightlifting and everything, and I've not been able to exercise at all since like 2020. And that's been really difficult for a number of reasons, but I won't get into that one today. So anyway, coming back to the Perrin Technique, I think obviously you have to make your own judgment call and speak to other people. If you're thinking about having the Perrin Technique, speak to other people about it, see if it's helped them, see if it's beneficial for you, and obviously see if you can afford it. Because say for me, it wasn't just the actual price of the treatment, it was actually getting to the venue in the first place. And obviously because we are immune compromised, we have to be careful with public transport. If you can manage public transport, I you know, really struggled. I had to get a ferry across to have my treatment, and I think all of these factors play into it. And I think, you know, do the pros outweigh the cons? And I'm glad I tried it to see what it was like. Like I said, I didn't feel comfortable in it. Do I feel like it made an improvement? Marginally, maybe. And at the time I was happy to make those marginal gains, you know, even if it was 1%. Would I do it now? Probably not. I think you can do it yourself as much as you can, and you can look into lymphatics. There's loads of videos on YouTube about lymphatic drainage, and you know, people showing you what to do, especially like the neck area and kind of, you know, around this area. I mean, it's an intimate area, and for me, I really struggled with that. Somebody, you know, that I didn't know in that situation, and I wasn't quite prepared for that, of how I would feel. And you know, when you feel vulnerable anyway with this illness, I think you really do need to be careful in those situations. So anyway, I hope this was useful, and like I said, I'm going to make some more videos about different things that I've tried. And if you have ME, please, you know, leave me a comment, tell me how you're going. Have you tried the Perrin Technique? Have you tried low dose naltrexone? Has it worked for you? Where are you in your journey at the moment? I'd love to hear from other people who are sort of traveling on the same path at the moment with this, because it's difficult, and it's at times it feels like you're very alone. And I've definitely had some dark moments over the past few years with ME, and I don't wish that on anybody. So if you are struggling, if you want to talk, please reach out. And yeah, like I said, there's always a little bit of hope. So let's keep that little bit of hope together. All right, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and yeah, speak soon.